Hello everyone, and welcome to the second video in the Subconscious You model series, the Exiled You Deep Dive. Today, I'm going to cover 4 things in this video. First, a refresher of the Exiled You mode. Second, I'm going to discuss the incredible and powerful relation between the conscious and the subconscious. Third, I'm going to discuss the Exiled You mode using a real-world example from modern American culture. And last, where do we go from here? What are the next steps to align our exiled yous and achieve balance in our lives? If you remember from our last video where we introduced the Exiled You mode, we used the example of the woman that was told early in life that science, athletics, engineering, math were not for girls. In that example, those subconscious yous were very important parts of her, which went into exile and made her panel imbalanced. Why is this important? You can think of your psyche as an iceberg. The conscious is the visible part, that which we control, and is only really a small portion. Freud maintains it's less than 20%. Aldous Huxley, from his book Doors of Perception, states consciousness eliminates more than it creates. It reduces it to a thin trickle. Our subconscious, on the other hand, makes up a majority of our psyche, and we don't have any control over it. How scary is that? You can see this working from your dreams. How often have you had a dream about a person or experience that you hadn't thought about for 10, 15, even 20 years? It's all in there. This bridges us to another concept that applies here, the law of conservation of energy. This law applies to physics and chemistry, but we're seeing with the evolution of our understanding of consciousness, it can also be applied to the psyche. So energy can neither be created nor destroyed. Rather, it can only be transformed or transferred from one form to another. So think about that as referencing the exiled yous, clawing, scraping, trying to come out of exile, and all of the energy it takes to repress them and hold them down. Remember some of the condition of the exiled yous. It leaves your panel in a deficient state. It requires a huge amount of energy to suppress, which leads to maladaptive behaviors. Addiction, depression. Depression is now the leading cause of disability in the world and life crises. In his book, War on the Gods in Addiction, David Schoen references the stress on the psyche to repress our subconscious yous, which creates a coping mechanism that becomes concentrated around the repetitive discharging of tension provided by various potentially addictive behaviors such as use of alcohol or drugs, gambling, sex, food, work, relationships, or whatever. Does that sound like you? I know it sounds like me. To show how this really works, I want to discuss a recent Netflix documentary about an American football player named Darren Hernandez. We'll start in childhood since that's where most of the deficiencies in our subconscious you models begin. Aaron was a sweet and emotional child, but his father was cold and a disciplinarian. A local football star and very macho, feelings and emotions had no place in the household. On top of this, Aaron was gay or bisexual. We'll never really know because Aaron could not fully explore this, but it was another very important piece of Aaron that would not be tolerated in the household. So he lived in fear of it being discovered, and his subconscious yous went into exile. If we look at Aaron's subconscious you model, he had become the macho athlete, which is not what his true model should have reflected. It's not what he really wanted. It's not who he really was. His emotional subconscious you and his sexuality subconscious you, which were very important to him, were placed into exile, leaving a humongous gaping hole in his panel. This was seen outwardly as anger and drug and alcohol addiction. The story is well documented, so I can talk about the ending without spoiling it for those who haven't seen it. Aaron slowly descended into oblivion from drug and alcohol abuse and mental instability. He lost it all, ended up committing murder, and eventually killing himself. This is serious business, my friends. Not honoring our subconscious self has great cost to our emotional well-being and our life. Where do we go from here? There are 2 things that will help us bring our exiled yous into alignment with the panel: acceptance and integration. So what does that mean and how do we do it? There are a couple more important psychoanalytical concepts to understand here. The persona and the shadow. There are many definitions among the greats in the field, but I'll keep it simple for this video. The persona is the parts of ourselves we want others to see. Those are things like our Facebook profile, right? Our job, how we portray ourselves to our friends, family, neighbor. The shadow is the parts of ourselves that we don't want others to see. So maybe you were a drug addict or an alcoholic, or you had abuse, or maybe you're gay. These are the things about us that we believe society, our friends and family just will not accept. If we go back to Aaron's model, for Aaron to have balance and harmony in his life, he would have needed to accept his shadow and integrate those exiled yous into his panel. This would not have been easy, but as you can see, it would have been better for him and all those tragically involved in his life to do this. To summarize, we need to look fearlessly inward. These concepts may not be easy for some. Our subconscious plays an important role in protecting us. But, we need to accept the shadow, and accepting our shadow may not be easy. And integrating the exiled yous may be even harder. But to achieve harmony and balance in our lives, we must align our panel. This is the warrior's path which leads to freedom. This concludes the Exiled You Deep Dive. Thanks for watching. If you found it helpful or insightful, please help my channel out by clicking like. If you know someone that would find this interesting, please share it with them. And if you want to follow my channel for this and other helpful videos, please hit subscribe.